Pretty amazing testimonies, ladies and gentlemen. Pretty amazing testimony. It's now my pleasure to bring to the stage LeVelle Moton. He's a Boys and Girls Club member right here from Raleigh, here in Wake County. LeVelle is the men's basketball coach at North Carolina Central University, where his teams have won 3 MEAC regular season championships and 2 MEAC tournament championships. His NC Central Eagles earned NCAA tournament bids in 2013-14 and 2016-17 seasons, as well as an NIT bid in 2014-15. LeVelle is a 2008 inductee into the Wake County Boys and Girls Club Hall of Fame. One of LeVelle's jobs tonight will be to introduce our featured speaker, so let's give him a very warm round of applause. Come to the stage. LeVelle, good to see you.
Good evening. I just told Gilbert I hate these things. I really do, man. I absolutely hate them because they're really emotional for me. Everyone has their own testimony, and I don't really know what the club meant to them. I'm not qualified to judge that. All I can do is come up here and attest what it meant to me, and you know, it's really difficult for me to always get an email from Raph, because I know what it is, and he knows I'm not going to say no to it. But I'm always happy to come back and be a part of this beautiful event where you're touching the lives and molding and shaping the hearts of young people to be better citizens and productive citizens into this world. When I came up, I took a picture with a young lady. She said I wanted to take a picture, and so she took it. And she said, "You look a little shorter on TV." And she said, "I'm probably your biggest fan, and I bet you've always been a fine young man." And I hugged her, and I said, "Thank you so much." And I know she's in here. I can't see her right now. But as I was walking away, I said to myself, wow, she really don't have a clue. Truth of the matter is, you know, the irony is we're celebrating this boys club for 50 years. And everyone came up and they told you how it began on Lane Street. Well, 4 blocks away in a different direction on Lane Street is where I grew up in a housing project. And it was the middle of the crack epidemic. And needless to say, it was an extremely tough event for me. See, my father left when I was 4. My grandmother passed when I was 10. Those are days that I'll never forget. And now, in the middle of this crack epidemic, I was really lost. I was losing my mind because every single day I walked out of my home, I had to make a life or death decision in order to get back into the home. Everything that I did affected whether I would return in that home safely. And I saw my mom struggling, and that really bothered me an awful lot. And my mother cleaned houses for a living, so she maybe just stayed going all day, had 3 different jobs where she cleaned these people's houses. And it was something about seeing my mom come in that door every single day that just fueled the burning inside of my belly. It was difficult to say the least because she didn't have any vacation. She didn't have any sick leaves. She couldn't take a day off. She didn't have any health benefits. We didn't have any dental benefits. When we went outside and played, she just reinforced the fact that she wanted us to be extremely careful and not hurt ourselves because we couldn't afford the health care. So I got tired of seeing her struggle, and I had this bright idea. I was going to become a drug dealer. Not the Scarface type drug dealer. This was going to be the quickest drug dealing tenure in the history of America. I was just going to try to sell drugs one time to get some money so she could catch up on her rent, and that was it. I got myself in some awful situations, and she took me back up to the boys club, and I had a brother that was 5 years older. And I hate this part of it because he's here tonight. I wish he'd stay home. I hate him for this. Lord. There's a man in here that saved my life. Stand up. Mr. Ron Williams. Y'all can clap longer for him if you want so I can get myself together. Just hate you, man. He became the only father I ever knew. And he did it with tough love. If I told y'all some of the things that he did to me, he would be arrested. He would still. Now, you get a lot of time nowadays for some of those things, but he's the first person to teach me how to hit a baseball, taught me how to throw a football, taught me how to shoot a basketball, taught me about the birds and the bees. I didn't know if I was the bird or the bee. But he taught me that. I just act like I knew, because as a young man, you're just supposed to sit there and act like you knew. The Boys Club provided me with many firsts. The first time I had a chance to go to a collegiate basketball game, first time I had a chance to go to Atlanta to a Major League Baseball game with the Braves. First book I read was at the Boys Club, the autobiography of O.J. Simpson. I know he got some more chapters he need to add in that. It's 1983. It's his first book, so it provided me with many firsts. But the one thing I'm extremely grateful for with the Boys Club is that God gave me a vision beyond my present set of circumstances. And while most of my friends were getting killed and succumbed to the drug game, Boys Club gave me a safe haven. And I was there every single day, from 7 in the morning, and that man took me home every single day. And one particular day, I'm extremely grateful for, because this is the event that really changed my life. When you're living in a housing project, you don't think your goal is just to be alive. People ask me what I wanted to be when I got old. I said, just alive. I walk into the Boys Club one particular day, and there's a big Pepsi truck outside. And I'm thinking they're just refurbishing the machines or whatever. And I walk in there, and I walk in the gym, and they're having this thing called a hot shot competition. And I walk in, and immediately I see Pepsi banners and all these Pepsi things. And a bunch of 10-year-olds run up to me and say, man, you got to do this, you got to do this. And I'm just getting lost, because I don't know, 10-year-olds trying to explain something to another 10-year-old, that just don't work out well. And Ron just like threw all of them out the way and said, man, come here, and janked me by my shirt. He said, listen, you got 1 minute to shoot at all 5 of these spots, and you make as many shots as you possibly can. And I'm like, man, I'm not doing that. That's corny. I thought it was corny, honestly. And they said, well, the winner gets that 2-liter Pepsi to take home. And I said, so where do I start? Do I start right here, or do I start right there? So he said, start right there. So I did it. And we had 3 rounds, and at the end of my 3rd round, I just remember the kids just rushing up on me saying, you set a record, you set a record. And I was like, forget the record, I want this Pepsi. This is what it's about, I want this Pepsi. And the people came up to me and said, young man, I need your name, you just set a record. And next week, you have to go represent the state of North Carolina in a Pepsi hot shot. And I said, I don't want to do that, I just wanted this Pepsi. So I wasn't into all the travel stuff. So the next weekend I went to Charlotte, and I represented the state of North Carolina, and I won that event. And the next weekend after that, I went to Atlanta. And I didn't want to go to Atlanta, because I don't know if y'all remember this, but there was a time, it was this Atlanta child murders thing going on. And they hadn't found the killer just yet. And I wasn't willing to sacrifice my life over the Pepsi hot shot. So I told him, I didn't want to do that. So Ron said, I'll go with you. He picked me up at 4 in the morning, and we drove to Atlanta. When I got to Atlanta, it was a gym full of 60 people. And there was one kid that had won the Pepsi Hot Shot Championship all of his life. He had Pepsi headbands, sweatbands, knee pads. This was the mid-'80s. His father was videotaping. They were serious about this. And it came down to me and him. And they told me, the last round, I needed 51 points, which nobody had ever done before, to win. And I ended up getting 53 points. And the kid was in the corner crying. And I went and I gave him my Pepsi Hot Shot trophy, because it didn't mean that much to me. And he was preparing this was his life, Pepsi. And I gave him my trophy. And what they told me was that I thought that was the end of it. The next week, little did I know, they told me I'd get an opportunity to fly to Washington, D.C. and meet the president and shoot at halftime of the Bullets game at the time in the Chicago Bulls. I just remember getting on a plane and flying, but I didn't want to go because I had an AAU basketball game coming up. And I told my mom I'm not going. And I was trying to feel myself. My inception of manhood, y'all know how that goes. So you kind of tell your mom what you're not going to do. And she said, no, you going. I said, I'm not going to that. So Ron had called. And he was like, man, when you want me, come pick you up, take you to the airport. I said, I'm not going. And she in the background, oh, he going. And I was like, Ron. I said, Ron, I'm not going. So she said, Ron, be here at such and such time, because I promise you he going. So the next day, we on the way to the airport, me and Ron. And we flying in, and when I fly in, I'm flying into D.C., and it's the first time I had ever been out the projects. It's the first time my talent had ever taken me out of this 4-block radius, and it really gave me hope, and it allowed me to dream. I went and met the president. I went to all the White House. I toured everything, the Lincoln Memorial, the monument, all of those things that I had always seen in history books. And I shot at halftime of the Bullets game. I ended up coming in second place because I was absolutely scared to death. I don't remember anything about it, but when I returned home, I'll never forget that experience. And that experience was provided by the Boys Club. And after that, I got my life on the straight and narrow. And what you see is, let's keep this our secret with the drug dealing thing and all that. I'm sure I'll be. But what you see is just a product of your investment. And I know it's too many of you to name. Thad, you're incredible. Smeeze, you're incredible. Mr. Cabs, thank you so much for not giving up on me. I may have been suspended more than any kid in the history of the Boys Club, because if I lost, I just threw a temper tantrum and went crazy. It works out now because it just molded me to be a better basketball coach, and not only that, but just a better man. So thank you guys so much, just for your investment. And when you look at me, when you look at Gil, when you look at other men that's coming up here telling their testimonies, just know that it's an 8, 9-year-old little boy trapped inside of them, and it's an 8, 9-year-old little boy out there that need your shared support as well, so they can come up and share their testimony in the future as well. So thank you very much. I appreciate you. That's weird. Thank you. Wow. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. You can be seated. I'm just going to ask Mr. Caps and everybody else, do not call me anymore for these. If you do, leave Ron at home. Like, either him or I got to show up. I just can't continue to do that. But I have the honor and the privilege to introduce your guest speaker tonight. Our guest speaker tonight grew up in the Boys Club of Allentown, Pennsylvania, and went on to become a National Football League Hall of Fame receiver. Andre Reed played in the NFL for 16 seasons, 15 with the Buffalo Bills, and 1 season with the Washington Redskins. During the course of his career, Andre has 1,000 or more yards receiving in 4 seasons and ended his 5th in the NFL history in total receptions with 951. He also ended his career 8th on the all-time list of total career receiving yards and 10th all-time touchdown receptions with 87. Andre played in 4 consecutive Super Bowls, was a Pro Bowl selection for 7 consecutive seasons, and in 2014 was selected for the National Football Hall of Fame. In 2010, our speaker started the Andre Reed Foundation to help underprivileged children reach their full potential and become responsible contributors to their communities. More relevant to us is that in 2015, our guest speaker was inducted into the Boys and Girls Clubs of America's Alumni Hall of Fame at their annual conference in Chicago. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome from Allentown, Pennsylvania, one of the greatest receivers of all time, and someone I idolized as a kid in my backyard, Andre Reed.